You're a normal person in 1932. You're outside on another day in your horse and carriage, looking for a job. You've been looking for about 1 year, but you aren't getting much luck. You barely have enough money to feed your family. This is the life during the Great Depression. During the time when Shed was open, the nation was in a time of poverty, where governments were failing and couldn't pay their dues. More people were unemployed every day. Gangsters at the time were running wild and robbing banks. Yet children were full of dreams of heroes while reading comic books. Even though times were rough, many honorable heroes were helping others.
Illinois' government lost $875 million, bringing them down to $74 million in revenues during the Great Depression. 40 million people in the country were poor and hungry. Gangsters ran around the U.S. and 2 banks were being robbed each day. 400,000 gangsters were on the loose. America had the highest homicide rate in the world during the Great Depression. At the time, alcohol and prohibition was illegal, making it a good source of income for the gangsters. After the stock market crashed, many stockbrokers and other people turned to gambling instead. Then they legalized gambling and turned to it for a stable economy. Yet great police officers came in after the Lindbergh Law, allowing them to arrest people that had committed certain crimes, clearing the streets of crime.
John Graves Shed was not looking for a job or begging for money or robbing banks. He had moved to Chicago in 1872 from the small town in New Hampshire just months after the Chicago fire. He had got a job as a stock clerk at Marshall Field & Company and slowly worked his way up. Because he's a great salesman, he got promoted every time somebody with a higher-ranking job left or died. Eventually, he made his way up to vice president of Marshall Field & Company. When Marshall Field died on January 16, 1906, John G. Shed became the president of Marshall Field & Company, making Marshall Field & Company the largest wholesale and dry goods store in the nation at the time.
During his presidency, he was a philanthropic man, giving money to make a library, and giving thousands of dollars to schools. Then on January 24, 1924, John G. Shed wanted to give back to Chicago, so he donated in all $3 million to Chicago so it could build the world's largest aquarium. He retired from presidency in 1924 as a man who came from humble beginnings to becoming the finest merchant in Chicago.
Most major cities in the United States and Europe had an aquarium. Well, now because of John G. Shed, Chicago finally had an aquarium. John G. Shed wanted to create the best aquarium possible. On February 12, 1924, a nonprofit Shed Aquarium Society was founded so that it could construct, maintain, and operate a new aquarium. On this 15-member board, one of the people was James Simpson. He was the successor of John G. Shed. As the president of Marshall Field & Company, James Simpson was given the job of overseeing the construction of the Shed Aquarium.
James Simpson was a key figure in Chicago's progressive urban planning movement. He was good at negotiating and played a big part in most of Chicago's public building projects in the 20s and 30s. Simpson went out and hired one of the best architectural firms in the Midwest at the time, Graham, Anderson, Probst, and White. With Shed's donation, they were able to get right to work.
Walter H. Shute had taken part in the building of South Boston Aquarium and the Brookfield Zoo, starting in 1919. In 1925, he was hired. John G. Shed and James Simpson were impressed by Shute and promoted him to associate director.
Walter H. Shute traveled with an engineer from Graham, Anderson, Probst, and White to the most successful aquariums in Europe, along with aquariums in New York, Philadelphia, Detroit, Boston, and San Francisco. They looked and kept track of the best architectural designs from those aquariums so that they could use similar designs in the Shed Aquarium. They also looked at state-of-the-art water filtration systems to use in the tanks. The sketches for the design of the Shed Aquarium were approved in July of 1926. Everything was going perfect until Shedd's death on October 22nd, 1926, at age 76. He was never able to see the shed completed, but they continued working and building. Then, finally on December 19th, 1929, the building was complete. There were pillars in the entrance, clocks hanging from the ceiling, and many different kinds of art and designs. But there was one problem. There was no water and animals.
To fix this problem, they bought a train called the Nautilus. It was built for long-range collecting trips. The Nautilus traveled to the Atlantic Ocean and collected water and reef fishes from saltwater areas and brought them back to the Shedd Aquarium. They were the first aquarium to collect fishes from all around the country. Because of the Nautilus, the Shedd Aquarium became the most diverse and the largest indoor aquarium in the world.
They also bought a ship called Coral Reef 2. It was used to catch fish in the rivers and oceans nearby. Nowadays, the Coral Reef 2 takes a trip to the Bahamas to collect rock iguanas and local fish every year. The scientists also study the animal's habitat and try to recreate habitats as similar as they can to the natural habitat so that the animals are comfortable. They also learn about the ecosystem so they could conserve the environment and the endangered rock iguana.
Finally, there are enough animals in water for the aquarium. The Shedd Aquarium was publicly opened on May 30th, 1930. After the last exhibit in the shed was opened, it was the largest and most diverse indoor aquarium in the world. In 1931, the shed set a record with having 4.69 million people visit the aquarium. During the 1933 Chicago World's Fair, an Australian lungfish named Grandad was donated to the Shedd Aquarium. Grandad is still alive today at the Shedd Aquarium and is now the oldest animal in an aquarium in the world.
Today, the Shedd Aquarium is a major tourist attraction that is owned by Joyce Simon. It averages about 2 million visitors a year. People come to the Shedd Aquarium to watch the animals and learn about how they live and interact with other animals in their environment. They train dolphins to do tricks and follow orders. This attracts more tourists to Chicago, which will help Chicago's economy and help the city overall by giving people a place to learn and relax.
The Nautilus is no longer in use as it was retired in 1957. The Coral Reef 2 is still in use, but it only takes one trip per year to the Bahamas to study and collect the animals there. In the aquarium, there are about 1,500 different species. It is not the most diverse aquarium in the world anymore, but it is still a relatively diverse aquarium. In all, the Shedd Aquarium has made a home for 32,000 animals.
The Shedd Aquarium is open to injured animals that cannot return to the ocean. They have accepted many injured animals that would die if they were not rescued. One incident involved a sea turtle named Nickel. Nickel was swimming near Florida's Gulf Coast when a motorboat came by and hit her with the propeller. There was a deep gash from the rear edge to the center of her carapace. She was floating in the water, thin and weak, when a marine biologist spotted her. They brought her to Clearwater Marine Aquarium for rehab, but the turtle was having trouble controlling her buoyancy. The Shedd Aquarium happily accepted the sea turtle in April of 2003. The veterinarians ran some medical tests on the sea turtle, and there was something strange. There was a coin stuck in her esophagus. Doctors were able to remove the coin harmlessly.
Another encounter the Shedd had was in 1989 with a 1-month-old sea otter pup that was separated from her mother. Her name was Kashamak. She was found by the FWS and they asked if Shedd could take her. The Shedd agreed, and Kashamak came to live with a group of welcoming sea otters in 1991.
The Shedd Aquarium has been pleasing visitors and inspiring people since it opened. It has been marked as a historical landmark. Shedd has cared for many animals and saved many animals from certain death by bringing them to the Shedd. The Shedd Aquarium will continue to inspire and entertain visitors into the future.